Hello everyone and welcome. Today I answer the question, can I beat Oblivion with only rusty weapons? Yes. Okay, so obviously you can. If you have something that does damage, it's not really a matter of if, more like when. But when can I beat Oblivion with only rusty weapons is an equally poor question to ask, so here we are. Truth is, I love this game to pieces. It was part of my childhood and I wanted to make a video over it for a while, but honestly I didn't really remember anything. So I thought this would be a good starting challenge. Little did I know though that I was signing up for the Broken Straight Sword meets the world's toughest sponge contest, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. First, a character. For this run, I decided to go as an orc since I would be purely melee and I thought the berserk ability would be helpful to increase my damage. I named him Rusty as it only seemed fit and was off. Immediately though, I became an orc stereotype by trying in vain to bash his door down to get it Valent and show him that his cell would be nice painted red, but before I was able to do so, none other than the Emperor showed up to save the day. Turns out, there's a secret tunnel that leads out of my cell to freedom. All I had to do was push a certain stone in. Unfortunately, I hadn't decided to lean against that particular wall yet, so I never noticed. Following the Emperor and his blades, we are confronted by a few mysterious individuals. Glad they have nice swords to defend the Emperor with because I am currently useless. After they have taken their leave, a wall crumbles to reveal some rats and a skeleton holding my first weapon, the rusty iron dagger. Alright, so let's talk a tiny bit about these weapons. They suck. You can get better weapons immediately after the tutorial. Hell, you can get better weapons in the tutorial. Even at 100 in blade or blunt, they hardly do any damage, and they are apparently the alpha build for Dark Souls 2's weapons as they tend to break before I finish killing anything stronger than a mud crab. And for those of you that are familiar with Oblivion's wonderful leveling system, you can imagine how this is going to become a problem very quickly. There are 5 different rusty weapons: a dagger, short sword, war axe, mace, and bow. However, one of those, the bow, is even more useless than the others as there are no rusty iron arrows, and as such I am not allowing myself to use it. Each weapon for the majority of the run does the same damage, so it honestly comes down to speed or range for my decision on which weapon to use, though since I normally play this game with a sword, I tended to favor the blades. In the next room over, I am able to grab my armor, the rusty iron cuirass, greaves, helmet, and shield. And with that, I'm kind of set for the run. I do want to collect every rusty weapon I find because they behave strangely, but I'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, as I continue making my way through the goblin-infested tunnels, I should probably explicitly state what I'm doing. I'm only allowed to do damage with rusty weapons and only wear the rusty iron set, barring any quest-related mandatory changes. And in addition to needing to finish the game, I decided I would assert my dominance as the best fighter in the world by also becoming the guildmaster of the Fighters Guild and the grand champion of the arena. Sounds easy enough. I'm sure nothing bad will happen along the way. Eventually, I meet back up with the Emperor and his gang, who are about to kill me on sight before Old Man McDiesoon stops them. He asked me if I'm into astrology to check our compatibility. Unfortunately, I'm a warrior and he's an old, so it won't work between us. Also, I only just realized that there's basically one star sign that's used for melee-focused characters, maybe 2 if you count the steed, but mages get like 8. So I guess we know what build Todd Howard prefers. Fearing our time was short, Uriel decides to play 7 minutes in the sewer with me before a Mythic Dawn assassin joins in but gets a little too excited and forgets which dagger he's supposed to use. Boris questions why I have the massive jewel that was, until about 6 seconds ago, around the very much alive Emperor's neck, but believes it when I, a total stranger and literal prisoner, tell him that the Emperor, who I remind you is dead, told me that I am the chosen one and needed to deliver it to some old guy outside of the prison. He buys this story and gives me the key to freedom. Now I am presented with the ability to pick my class, and this is where I make an intentional, horrible decision. I decided to make my own, specializing in combat, naturally, strength and endurance as my favorite attributes for the initial boost, and then pick armor, blade, block, blunt, hand-to-hand, heavy armor, and restoration as my major skills. Now, to those of you out there that haven't played this game, that might seem like a logical decision, but I assure you, I just made this run way harder than it had any need to be. But no time to think about that. My freedom, my destiny, is at hand. So I named this class the Venture class, leave Boris with the dead Emperor that I had nothing to do with, and emerge from the sewers into the wide and beautiful world of Cyrodiil. Now I know that there's a whole world-ending story happening, but my first order of business is to head into the city and look at all the weapons I can't use, then buy a bunch of repair hammers. Next, I head over to the arena area and watch these two beat each other up for a couple minutes until I learn the intricacies of hand-to-hand combat. It hadn't occurred to me yet, but this was pointless as I am unable to use hand-to-hand due to the fact that my hands are not made out of rust or iron, and rusty iron even less so. But it was enough to make me level up. I then join the arena and take the heavy raiment as it is necessary to wear it in order to participate in the battles. This is one of 2 instances in the run where I am required to wear something other than my rusty iron armor. Part of the reason why I wanted to do the arena at all is because it's a source of some easy early game gold, and with the exception of one actual quest at the end, the whole thing is just Gladiator Simulator. Since I'm level 1, the fights don't really pose much of an issue, so instead, let me tell you the word of the day: Foreshadow. Verb. Be a warning or indication of a future event. At this point I actually realized that I could level up, so I slept on a nearby bedroll for about as long as I do IRL and get that sweet +5 in strength, speed apparently, and a little in endurance. Now I'm not going to go through every fight here because the combat in this game is basically 90% mash the attack button, 5% block, and 5% trying to either run away and heal or tempt fate by landing a special power attack. After a while I rank up to Brawler and get another level which is not as beneficial as the last one, and I also figured that's enough fighting for now, so let's do more fighting but in a different way. I buy a bunch more repair hammers and set out for Wayne and Priory, and this is where the game shines. Simply walking around the game world feels so like you're on an adventure in a magical land. Things to discover, treasures to find, and interesting characters to fight. I love it. I know it's probably partially nostalgia, but I really do genuinely love this game and think it's one of the greatest ever made. The only reason Todd Howard refuses to remaster it is because he knows he can't improve upon perfection. That's why Skyrim has so many re-releases, because to mimic even a fraction of Oblivion's beauty, it had to be ported to everything in existence. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if, as I speak, Bethesda's R&D team are trying to figure out how to make Skyrim run on an Etch-a-Sketch superglued to a fucking potato, but I digress. On my travels, I encounter a bandit who has mastered the offensive art of circle strafing, but failed to master the defensive art of not getting stabbed in the face. Similarly, further down the road is a highwayman who, upon realizing I didn't have any money, decided he would kill me for free. I suppose Bandit 101 didn't teach him the phrase, if you're good at something, never do it for free, but as it turns out, I am better at killing than he is, so it doesn't really matter. Hilariously, he was also dirt poor with no money, but that's fine. I soon arrive at Wayne and Priory, where I barge in and demand to speak to Joffrey like some kind of psychopath. I tell him how the Emperor is dead, but I, a recently escaped convict, hold the most important relic in Cyrodiil and that I must find his hidden son. Joffrey, doing what any sane individual would do, fully and immediately believes me and reveals the name and location of the secret heir to the throne. This man is immensely lucky that I am not a Mythic Dawn sleeper agent. I then realize that while I can't use anything except rusty weapons, I will need coin as I plan to go through more repair hammers than rolls on Thanksgiving. So I help myself to Joffrey's stuff, then head into Coral. Here I stand motionless in the plaza center for about 13 hours until the shops open, where I then proceed to sell everything to some random politician. I had no intentions of stopping the Oblivion invasion yet. I just wanted to drop off the amulet to get it out of my inventory, then pursue my real hobby, murder! I mean the Fighters Guild. After speaking with Valenna, I am deemed an associate and sent off to Anvil for some grunt work. Azan tells me there's a rat problem nearby that needs to be taken care of, which is great because I make a mean weed rat stew. But just as my hopes climbed high, they were dashed as Arvina tells me the rats are her pets and that instead of dining on them, I need to kill the thing that's dining on them. Upon investigation, I find that it is a starving mountain lion. Guess Tom finally went back to his roots. After dispatching it, Arvina tells me to go find Paneris and make sure that there are no others. On our way out, we run into Maik, who has something interesting to say.
It is good the people wear clothing. Maik wears clothing. Who would want to see Maik naked?
Be glad you don't live in the era of the internet, my friend. Paneris, either an absolute Chad or a man with a death wish, walks directly into the middle of 4 hungry lions, but together we take them out. I return to Arvina to tell her the good news, but one more lion has gotten into the basement. Nothing a tetanus-riddled dagger can't fix, though. Naturally, Arvina decides someone is out to get her and her poor delicious rats and points the finger at Quillweave, a local Argonian woman. So I stand awkwardly behind the houses, motionless, waiting for dusk to arrive, and when it does, I see Quillweave leaving meat out. Upon confrontation, she admits to leaving the meat there in an attempt to have the rats lured out and taken care of by the guards, but upon learning that she is actually attracting mountain lions, she feels great remorse at potentially putting her neighbor's life in danger and begs me not to tell Arvina that she's behind it.
And if you can keep this our little secret, I can make it worth your while. There's a bit about acrobatics I can teach you.
Today I learned I am the protagonist of the Lusty Argonian Maid. Obviously for, moral character reasons, I say Quillweave had nothing to do with the lions, then return to her for my real reward, which is learning how to do gymnastics. Like, actually jumping around, not the fun kind. Disappointment weighing heavy at my heart, I return to Azan, who promotes me and gives me my next job. I am to speak with Norbert about some robberies. Norbert here asked me to stay in his shop overnight to catch the thieves. Normally I would say this man is just asking to be robbed, but I am a member of the Fighters Guild, so I guess it kinda makes a little bit of sense. So I proceed to stand motionless in the store for... oh, hello there.
I don't like you and don't want to talk to you.
Fair. So it seems I caught the thieves just as they were finished robbing the store, so they just kinda casually stroll out of there. I wait another full day, and this time they attacked me. Me, who was standing in the store doing nothing! The audacity! These thugs then proceed to bully me into a corner. Yeah, this doesn't bode well for any future encounters. Fortunately, I can call upon the almighty power to freeze time and chug healing potions, but getting stagger locked by basic enemies, in addition to doing virtually no damage myself, means I'm going to basically need to 1v1 final destination no items everything I meet. With the power of rust and shitty pathfinding on my side, I'm able to best the bandits and then report to Norbert that his shop should be safe. Azan tells me that he's got no more work for me and that I should go check with Burrs, Grow Crash, and Shadenhall. On my way there, I encounter an invisible man. I really need to stop hitting the skooma, but aside from that, the trek is uneventful. Burrs tells me that I need to deliver some weapons to my guildmates in a nearby cave. Easy enough. Fortunately for me, it is a goblin cave, and low-level goblins have a chance at carrying rusty weapons. Specifically, I am looking for the mace to complete my set. Inside are my guildmates who, I guess, were so excited to get to work they forgot their weapons at home. I really don't understand how they managed to get inside the cave without any weaponry. Maybe they use their hands or smooth talk to goblins. Regardless, I am given the choice to give the sword and hammer to either, but they both give me hints as to which weapon they would prefer. Thankfully, since I am able to put the square block into the square hole, I know which weapon to give which person. Together, we clear out the cave no problem, and by no problem, I mean I left them alone to loot for 5 minutes and they're dead. Oh well, as they say, job's done, and I return to Burrs for my reward. He does scold me for letting my teammates, whose combined IQ was a number lower than the amount of batteries it takes to power a TV remote, die, but the shipment got there either way. Regardless, I am promoted to Journeyman and told to head to Coral for more work. I make a quick stop in the Imperial City to buy Starlight because I thought being able to see would be beneficial. I also bought Heal Major Wounds, but ultimately it rarely got used because it cost my entire Magicka bar for pretty much no healing. Valenna, being true to any CEO role, instead of giving me the duties herself, tells me to go speak with Orin. Doing so, I learned that I need to seek out Maglir in the best city in the whole game, Skingrad. On my way there, I see a woman climbing a mountain in the distance and my curiosity was piqued. Perhaps she's a bandit or a lonely traveler willing to tell me some tales. So I jumped up the mountain to greet her, and as it turns out, she is just some random lady that knows a bit about lockpicking. Can't say I'm not disappointed, but that's just how it goes. Continuing on, I find the Shrine of Clavicus Vile, and notice that an Imperial Legion soldier is attending the ceremony, confirming once and for all, the Oblivion crisis was an inside job. In Skingrad, I locate Maglir, who tells me his job is to find a journal that is located in Fallen Rock Cave, but instead of doing that, he ran away scared. So he gives me the contract and I'm off to plunder a book. Fallen Rock Cave is not at all dangerous. There's a few skeletons and zombies, but I don't know why Maglir couldn't handle them. It's not like he's limiting his power with rusty weapons. True to its name though, there are in fact falling rocks. In a flooded part of the cave, I find the journal I'm looking for and return to Maglir to tell him I have his back and will tell Orin that he completed the job. As I leave the pub, I am approached by a strange little man telling me to meet him behind the Great Chapel at midnight and that he would make it worth my while. But Mama Rusty told me never to follow strange men behind the chapel at night, so I return to Orin, who was amazed Maglir did his job that he didn't do. I'm then told that some of my guildmates down in Leyawiin are getting a bit too rowdy and I need to reel them in. On my way there, I hit Journeyman level with blunt weapons, which means on a sideways power attack there is a chance to disarm opponents. I put it to the test immediately with his highwayman, and sure enough, I flung her weapons into the ocean, never to be seen again. Wow, you just want to prove me wrong there, don't you? Normally, I never really bother with power attacks unless I think the hit is strong enough to kill them, but in this run, it never will. However, the special effects of Journeyman, Expert, and Master level will likely be super useful. At this point, I had leveled up enough that the game started spawning stronger enemies. For example, this single black bear cost me all of my potions and still nearly killed me. But I am the triumphant hero of destiny and nature will not get in my way. About 100 meters forward, I run into another bear to which I triumphantly run away. A true hero knows when to retreat after all. Thankfully, there was a friendly man along the path. Friendly for the bear, that is. At this point though, I was fairly close to Breville, so I led the bandits there and let the town guard take care of them for me. Triumphantly, of course. After selling my well-earned spoils, I rested at the guild hall here to level up to 8, which was a big mistake as now trolls had a chance to show up as a regular enemy, and sure enough, just outside the town, one wants to say hello. These green bastards have health regen, and I do very little damage. Guess it's time for more cardio. This one troll followed me all the way from Breville to Leyawiin. Fortunately, I ran into an Imperial soldier who was quick to help. That being said though, he decided not to prioritize the troll following me, nor the bandit, but instead the mud crab that just happened to be in the area. Maybe an Oblivion takeover isn't such a bad thing. In the city, I locate my rowdy brethren, and they tell me the reason they are upset is because another faction, the Blackwood Company, is taking their work, and that the only way they will stop is if I find some jobs for them. Asking around, I am told that Margette might have some work. She's a hobby alchemist and needs dangerous ingredients that come from monsters. However, she doesn't trust me or the Fighters Guild, so instead of just letting us do the work, she needs me to prove we are worthy by bringing her 5 portions of ectoplasm. Ectoplasm is a common drop from ghost-type enemies. Ghosts in Oblivion can only be harmed by spells, silver, daedric, or enchanted weapons. Did you notice that none of those things are rusty? But she doesn't say that I need to kill them myself, so I just hop stores until I've purchased enough, winning her favor and allowing my guildmates exclusive rights to be Margette's personal ogre teeth collector. I'm then promoted to swordsman and sent back to Azan for more work. This time, there are thieves down in Anvil, and as a bonus, Maglier will be accompanying me. First, I need information, but everyone I talk to said they don't like me enough to talk to me, which is weird. I'm trying to help them. Ah well, nothing a little money in the pocket can't fix, and with that I learned I should seek out Newheim, the portly, about it. I find him near the docks, and he tells me that the thieves stole a lot of stuff, but importantly a family heirloom. There's actually a second quest here to return his stolen item, and since they are in the same place, I thought I might as well double dip on the rewards. The cave itself is swarming with enemies, and I take my first death. However, the thieves did not know that I have the ability to rewind time, and thus am back with a vengeance. This time around, I lock myself in a closet with this woman who wants to ram the pointy end of her arrow into me repeatedly, but there's no time for fun, so I just take her out. Maglier and I then clear out the rest of the dungeon no problem, but I did notice that while the enemies weren't wearing armor, they were using dwarven and silver weapons that are occasionally enchanted. It's only gonna get harder from here. I return to Newheim to tell him his thief problem is no more, as well as give him back his prized cup. Azan tells me my work is done and that I should check if Burrs has anything, to which I am told my next contract is to meet with Vienna about retrieving something from a family tomb. Turns out, Vienna's father is a terrible gambler and lost it all on blackjack, so he was taken away in the middle of the night. Vienna wants to pay off her debt and would like us to retrieve her grandfather's sword and armor to sell. The debt itself is 1,000 septims. The cool thing is that I could pay it myself and be done with the quest, but where's the fun in that? At first, the cave seemed mostly harmless, a few zombies and skeletons, but nothing I couldn't handle. That was until there was a not-so-friendly ghost, and just for a reminder, I have no way of damaging it. All I could really do was run away and try to heal, or make enough distance to lose aggro and wait. I ponder what my next course of action is, definitely not using this time to show you all my wonderful, beautiful merch for sale, just click the link in the description below, but instead how I should go about getting further into the dungeon. After all, there's likely to be more ghosts, and that's just more problems. In the end, I decided to lead the ghosts all the way outside, then sprint through the cave hoping to lose them. To my amazement, it worked. But I was out of the frying pan and into the oven, as the next level down had multiple skeletal guardians and normal ones close together. I robbed them of the satisfaction of killing me, opting to reload a save and then wait an hour to get my health back, and I was lucky enough to only pull one guardian on the second try. This made the encounter considerably easier, and I was able to sneak into the ghost guarded room to grab the sword and armor and then return to Vienna. Burrs then promotes me to protector rank and instructs me to seek out Orin for more duties. This time there's a rather off-the-record mission. I'm to go with Varanus Daunton, the guildmaster's son, to look for a missing individual. Now, the reason why it's hush-hush is because the other son of the guildmaster is dead, and she doesn't want that to happen again, obviously. But Orin wants us to help get Varanus' confidence back up to be a better warrior. So together we venture into Norwell Cavern, and it's fucking trolls because of course it is. Well, this was bound to happen eventually. At least I have leveled up enough that I'm able to outpace the healing they do. That being said, for the most part I was simply a distraction while Varanus did all the heavy lifting. I was told to not let any harm come to him, which made me worry that if he died it was an automatic failure, but the game protects me from that, and instead of the troll ripping him apart limb by limb, he instead just tucks him into bed for a good little nap. So as mighty a warrior as I am, I know when I need to act as a tank. Is what I would say, but on the next level down are ogres. These things hit hard and have a lot of health. Pulling them one at a time and mastering the Oblivion combat tactic of step in and hit, step out to dodge works pretty well. But I'm sure you can see how I'm about to have a really bad time in this run. I make Lord Farquaad happy by taking care of Shrek, but then fucking 4 trolls show up out of nowhere. Unsurprisingly, I died. On the second try, we managed to only pull 2 trolls initially, and I was able to somehow burst down one before the second one joined the fight. Similarly, I took out the second one before a third showed up. This is where things got a bit scary, but with some clever footwork, the third one falls as well. I wait Scum to full health and easily dispatch the final one. Several ogres and trolls later, we eventually find our missing person. Dead. Very dead. Orin says it's a shame he died, but knows that the body wasn't eaten nor were there creatures around it. I don't know what skooma he was on, that cave was absolutely crawling with monsters. Either way, my task is to find Maglier again because, surprise, he skipped out of more work. Honestly, kids these days, no one wanting to pull themselves up by their rusty iron bootstraps. Wait, I'm not wearing boots. I find Maglier in Breville, and it turns out he left the Fighters Guild for the Blackwood Company. Since I helped him before, an action I am now regretting, he turns the contract over to me without any fuss, telling me to contact Ari in the Mages Guild. She's upset, rightfully so, as no one has shown up to do the job she requested, but tells me she needs Imp Gale. Luckily, imps are not immune to iron, so I clear out a few in a nearby cave, then return to her with the ingredients. Honestly, I don't know why Maglier couldn't do this. It wasn't that hard, he's just a little bitch. Orin is not pleased with Maglier's betrayal, but promotes me to Defender nonetheless, then tells me he has a special assignment that we can't talk about here and to meet him at his house after dark. If I didn't know any better, I think he's into me. Orin tells me that the mission where the Guildmaster's eldest son died seemed a bit strange and that the Blackwood Company might be behind it. The contract was to collect a sword and deliver it to a wizard, but the company claimed to have done it. Upon investigation of where the target was supposed to be, it is revealed that there is no target. Orin suspects that the Blackwood Company paid him part of the money to hand over the sword and the location of the wizard that wanted it so he could kill him and take it back. So together we go to a nearby ruin where the original target is thought to be. I show these bandits that butter is not a good thing to lube up the shaft of your weapon with, and just before he can pick it up, I yoink it and force him to fight with his bare hands. After a bit more exploring, we run into Azani Blackheart, the original target of the contract, very much so alive and in possession of the sword. Well, he was alive until he met the business end of my axe. Orin promotes me to warder, and I do the old carry something in front of me so I'm not over encumbered trick, but I forgot you can't fast travel in this game when you're too heavy. At this point, things were getting a bit tougher to kill, so I bought out all the healing potions I could find and thought I would try my hand at a bit of alchemy to craft my own. I forgot though I am not a professional chef, so my potions healed me for about the amount of damage I would take for sneezing a little too hard. The next job from Azan is to help Alante study some Daedric shrines. Why she specifically wanted to go to a dangerous one in a cave and not one of the random shrines around Cyrodiil is beyond me, but I'm paid to hurt things, not to think. I was a bit worried when I was told to keep her safe, but for some reason, she just didn't follow me into the cave, so she was never in any danger. The same could not be said for me, as there were Dremora, scamps, and demon hotties ready to tear out my soul. Before they got a chance though, the game intervened and crashed. I did have to redo the earlier fight, but not much progress was lost, and eventually I clear out the whole cave and guide Alante to the shrine. I noticed a door in the back of the room earlier, and I thought she was going to go there and I'd have more things to clear out, but she seemed satisfied with me only going down one layer, told me she would stay here a little bit longer, and gave me a book about how to use my pointy stick better. Azan pays me and ships me back to Burrs, who tells me there are some escaped fugitives who are bothering the locals down in Breville. Honestly, there's nothing to note here, it's just your standard kill the dudes quest, so I kill the dudes and return for my payment and a rank advancement to Guardian. I then speak with Orin again, who tells me Varanus has gone missing, which in this world probably means dead. He says he sent him and some other men to Forsaken Mine to clear out some trolls. Oh boy, my favorite, I can't wait to join the probably definitely dead Varanus in a dirt nap. Upon entering the mine, there are in fact dead people, but also rats and mud crabs, so I got a little bit excited thinking this was going to be some specifically set dungeon that would have lower level enemies. It did not, the trolls tore me apart. After I was done learning orc anatomy firsthand, I managed to clear out the trolls and found the very cold body of Varanus Danton. On his body was a journal that I handed over to Orin, who understands the Blackwood Company set up the whole thing. He then tells me that since it was his orders, he would be the one to tell the now sunless guildmaster the bad news, and that I should lay low and speak with Azan or Burrs for more work. Azan tells me that he has one more contract and some bad news. Apparently, the guildmaster wasn't happy that both her sons are now Wormfeet and has cast Orin out of the guild and demoted me to defender. Not completely sure why I was shafted, but whatever. Anyway, the contract is that the stone of St. Alicia was stolen from Bruma Chapel and I am to retrieve it. Since it is my first time visiting the city, I thought I would come bearing gifts. In this case, 2 bears and a mountain lion. The guards did not enjoy my gift as much as I had hoped and instead are doing their best impression of Varanus, and having said that, I am now starting to understand why the guildmaster was mad at me. Anyway, I am told that there are 4 or 5 thieves and that they are heading east out of the city, so I heroically leave the city, hit the bears a couple times, then re-enter and wait to regain my health. Eventually, I put an end to Winnie the Pooh and can get back to tracking down those thieves. Thankfully for me, they were kind enough to wait until I was done with the local wildlife. Strangely, he didn't fight back. Actually, he lamented the fact that he stole the stone in the first place, saying that it was more trouble than it's worth. Turns out, some nearby ogres that like shiny rocks decided to add the stone to their collection, which, kinda sucks. Fortunately, Shrek has 1 brain cell, so I can trick his AI to stand on the other side of the table while I just hit him repeatedly. His arms are long enough to strike me as well, but with some clever back and forth footwork, I'm mostly safe. That is until there's more than 1 of them. At this point, I bail out of the runes, hoping to reset aggro to make it a one-on-one, but there is no such luck. In fact, a nearby bandit decided to join in too. He actually did a decent amount of damage to one of the ogres before getting taken out. I tried to use the tents as makeshift cover, and it worked well enough, but in the end my berserk ran out, causing me to lay down for a little nap, which ultimately ended with me being fisted to death. After a reload, I managed to kill them and the bandit, then rest and level up to 16, finally maxing out my strength and endurance, which sounds like a good thing, but it's not. Now I feel is a good time to talk about how I fucked up in this run by not caring about Oblivion's quirky leveling system. Way back at the beginning of the video, I mentioned that the major skills that I chose, that are logical for the playstyle I'm doing, were a bad decision and were going to make the run harder. This is how. For those of you that aren't familiar or have forgotten how Oblivion leveling works, allow me to explain my mistake. You are required to pick 7 major skills, and when you gain a total of 10 levels in those, your character levels up. Depending on which skill you leveled, you will be able to increase one of your stats by as little as 1 or as high as 5 points. So far sounds good. My specific problem though is that I put blunt, blade, block, and heavy armor as major skills. Meaning, every single encounter, I will be gaining major stat increases but not minor, usually spread more towards damage thanks to needing to kill things and less so towards endurance as sometimes I get hit. Now, on the surface, this isn't super bad as it just means I'll be raising my strength for damage and endurance for health. The problem comes with Oblivion's world scaling. As you level up, newer and stronger enemies are spawned in to give you a sense of scaling, up to about level 25. After that, to compensate, the game just starts bloating the enemy's health pool. Now, I'm not level 25 yet, but remember how I said I hit 100 in strength already? That means, aside from getting to 100 in blade or blunt, I'm basically as strong as I'm going to be, and I'm sure you can already see that some of the enemies I'm facing have way too much health. I was aware of this when I started, but naive me thought it wouldn't be that big of a deal. I still have a few more Fighters Guild quests and basically the whole of the arena and main quest, so who knows what level I'll end up at. But the idea of fighting multiple high-level enemies with extra health with these weapons doesn't set well with me. Additionally, I just wanted to say that I didn't really look anything up about this run prior to doing it, but while I was researching the level scaling mechanic, I came across Nurbit's video doing the same challenge. We had some key differences in our run, but let's just say he avoided the massive health boat problem. Lucky him. Anyway, with that explanation out of the way, let's get back to toothpicking ogres to death. My skill with the blade has risen to expert level, which means on a backwards power attack, I have a chance to knock the enemy over, giving me time to get some paper cuts in. This is actually a very useful ability in this run, held back only by the fact that my swords have very little range and are also essentially made out of styrofoam. In fear that the world would grow beyond my massive muscles, I figured it was time to train my brain as well. So I began casting minor life detection and protect to ultimately raise my intelligence and willpower so I could heal myself more. With the ogres cleared out, I grabbed a stone and returned it to Bruma Chapel. Azan thanks me for my work and tells me to go back to Burrs, but before that I realized the reason I was constantly being staggered was my low agility. Sneak is governed by that, so I crouched down and walked into a wall for half an hour until I was prepared for my next level up. Don't worry, I won't waste your time talking about this every time I did it because well, that's several hours of my life wasted, so I won't waste yours too. Burrs tells me that I need to contact Lord Rugdump and that his daughter has gone missing. Upon meeting him, he wishes to conversate on the Lady Rogbutt. No, I don't think I will. Lord Rugdump is a intelligent individual, and he believes that his daughter has actually been kidnapped by ogres east of his estate. And sure enough, there are about 3 of them surrounding her. Maybe out to really check if she has the Rogbutt. I was able to pull one by itself, and with my fancy footwork took it out, but not so luckily the second time I pulled the remaining 2. At first I thought I was in for a difficult encounter, but then I found their one true weakness. Doors. These ogres are too large to fit through this gate. That means with a little bit of patience, I can safely chip away at their health pools. That is until one of them decided to ascend to a higher plane and float over the gate. But that's why we have backup gates. With all the ogres dispatched, I fetch the fair lady and escort her back to her estate where Rugdump is excited. I think. Either way, I return to Burrs, who restores my guardian rank, then sends me on a new quest. This time, there's been some disappearances at Harlan's Watch, and I need to investigate. After speaking with the locals, I'm told that there are reports of some strange lights near a cave, and some others went to check it out but never returned. The cave is nearby down the mountain, so I begin my descent and oh no, those are will-o'-the-wisps. Normally not a difficult enemy, except these specific ones are actually scaled to the player's level, but a bigger issue is that like ghosts, I can't hurt them. My first thought was to just sprint into the cave. I'd bet all my septums that the missing villagers are dead inside, and sure enough they are. The problem then is that I need to clear out all the trolls to stop the killings. You know, all the trolls I pulled running through this area. I decided to rewind time to before entering the cave and hopefully I could sneak past the deadly lights. That didn't work either and they followed me in. I then had the amazing idea to run away and hope the village people could aid me, but they were all snuggled up into their warm beds, completely oblivious to the screams of pain coming from outside their house. At this point, I ran all the way back to the cave and into the center room. I had noticed I did a lot of damage to the troll, so I thought if I could quickly dispatch it, I could get away before the living glow dust caught up to me, but to my astonishment, they just didn't follow me inside the cave this time. I used this breather to repair my equipment and wait to regain health, then slaughter the troll that was standing over the dead villager. I then begin the slow process of clearing out the cave one troll at a time. And when I say slow, what I mean is that after every kill, I would wait 24 in-game hours for Berserk to be off cooldown. This wasn't difficult, it was just tedious and time consuming, and it took 30 real-world minutes to clear this one cave. I return to Burrs, who informs me that there are no more contracts and he promotes me to the rank of champion. He says now that I outrank him, there's nothing more for me to do, but perhaps I should drop in on an old friend, so I head over to Coral and meet up with Orin, who has an off-the-books mission for me. He warns me that I might be expelled from the guild should I accept, but I've come this far so there's no turning back now. He requests that I go to Glademist Cave and capture one of the Blackwood Company's highest-ranking members, Ajum Kajin. On my way there, I ran into some trouble with a couple bandits. Nothing I couldn't handle, but it would be awful to run into something stronger. So I arrived at the cave after a little bit of trouble, but I was prepared to take on a few Blackwood Company members. What I wasn't prepared for was them being decked out in full ebony armor. I ended up leaving the cave to try and heal, but was still being followed. Thankfully, I ran into this guard who, after dispatching the local wildlife, showed me that he was in fact Medieval Flash. Together, we dispatched the ebony-clad warrior without an issue. I took this time to retreat and level up again because why not continue to make things harder, and instead of spamming the same spells over and over, I thought I would try spamming different spells over and over. I bought Bound Dagger to level my meager conjuration, and the game crashed when I tried to use it. I thought it might have been a fluke, so I tried again, but no, it just doesn't like Bound Dagger, I guess. Fortunately, Bound Helmet works, and I'm able to level basically off a single cast, so it's relatively quick going. Then I spent an embarrassingly long amount of time walking into a wall, but finally I felt ready to take on the cave again. Fortunately, most of the remaining guards were archers, so all I had to do was corner them and show them the wrath of mildly annoying damage. There was one enemy clad in pretty much full Daedric attire, which was terrifying, but luckily for me, he seems to have studied under Derek Zoolander and has issues turning to face me, a key combat strategy going forward. Near the end of the dungeon were 2 more ebony warriors, and for this I wanted to get a little bit clever. I led them back to the land bridge I had passed and attempted to backstep power attack one of them off the ledge. The fall wouldn't be enough to kill them, but I was hoping it would buy me enough time to 1v1 the other one. Then I disarmed the remaining one and stole his mace before he could pick it back up. After that, he got stuck in some AI loop, and the reason I bring this up is despite doing all 3 of those things, basically one after another, I still wasn't able to take this one down before the other one showed back up. Eventually, I resigned to just leading them outside and hoping a Legion soldier would be around to help me out. There was, but another Minotaur decided to join in and crash the party. Astoundingly, we won the encounter. Honestly, at this point, I'm not even the main character of the story anymore. I locate Kajin thinking I would have a battle of magic and disease on my hand, but he willingly gives up and goes with me. So I escort him back to Orin, who wants me to, smooth talk the information out of him. I was ordered not to kill him. Makes sense, dead lizards tell no tales and all, and fortunately, I can't kill anything in a reasonable amount of time anyway. So I proceed to perform cruel and unusual punishment by inflicting the rod on him a million times until he tells us the Blackwood Company is getting stronger every day, as well as the name of their leader, Rizikar, but refuses to tell us the source of their power and then alivens himself. He did it by equipping a ring that cooked him, and Orin says it's a magical item that we might have missed. His hands were visible the whole time, I wonder how he equipped it. Speaking of rings, at some point I equipped a ring that gave myself 18% shield. Technically, it's not rust, but since it provides no actual defensive boost directly, I ruled it fair play, though I refuse to cast any protect spells in combat regardless. Orin tells me the information is good, but we need more, so he says I must go to Leowyn and infiltrate the Blackwood Company directly. He warns me of the danger and that I will need to stay away from my guildmates, but danger's my middle name. When I try to join, I am accused of being a Fighters Guild lackey, which is true, but I lie and say there's no work to be done and that's why I'm here. Jitum accepts this immediately and then says that I look inexperienced, which I would say is wrong, but I did walk in here wearing full rusty armor with what is essentially dull cutlery for weapons, so maybe he has a point. Either way, he says he's got a job for me and tells me that I'm going to be joining 3 other members to kill a few goblins terrorizing a nearby village. Before I go, however, I am to drink a mysterious liquid, the sap of a history, as it will help boost my physical abilities. My dreams of performing in the Cyrodiil Olympics die here, but how can I ever say no to the lizard man I just met? So I drink the potion and wake up in the village that is besieged by goblins. Swiftly, my company and I put an end to them. What's strange is that there were some goblins inside the houses, not really doing anything, but I'm sure the villagers will be happy that the problem is dealt with. Suddenly, and without warning, I am in front of Orin, and he tells me that some of my guildmates found me unconscious in the streets of Leowyn. I tell him what happened, and he asks me to return to Water's Edge to check on all the villagers. Upon my arrival, I am met with a terrible and gruesome scene. The whole village has been slaughtered. Marcel, the lone survivor, stands over the corpse of his daughter, wondering what kind of monsters could do such a thing. The realization is swift as it is sickening. It was we that killed the villagers. Returning to Orin, he assures us that it was the hiss sap and that we were not in our right mind. He then tells us that we have to put a stop to Blackwood Company once and for all, that I must go to Leowyn and remove all of its members from this plane of existence, as well as destroy the history before it can cause more damage. I remember the building swarming with highly geared individuals, so I had a plan. First, walk in like nothing is wrong, then immediately get called out for being a Fighters Guild spy. Aggro everything and bail out of the house hoping the guards would assist me, and repeat until everything is dead. Part 1 to 4 of that plan worked perfectly. The problem I ran into is that the door locks shut behind me and I can't get in without a key. So new plan, go in there and not die. Funnily enough, for some reason when I went in this time, Jafazar didn't attack me. He just stood there getting pelted by arrows and lightning bolts. Just Oblivion things, I guess. First I try to go for the mage, but her spells just deal so much damage that I kinda can't handle it. And second try, history repeats itself. Third try, I thought I would go for the archer. Luckily, the mage just didn't involve herself in the fight, and the archer got stuck on some bookshelves, so I was free to just hack away at him. I then tried fighting the mage fairly, but the combination of not being able to see her and being blinded every 2 seconds by fire made for a rough encounter. However, she too has a weakness to ebony. Not the sword, I mean the table. Since my short sword outranges her dagger, I was able to find the perfect place to stand to hit her while she was helpless to hurt me. Thank Akatosh she didn't remember that she could shoot literal lightning from her fingertips. I sneak into Jitum's room hoping to get some bonus damage, but it turns out he's not home, which was unexpected. Ultimately, it didn't matter as he returned from his milk run as soon as I left his room. He keeps spawning in headless zombies, making the fight an unfair 1 9/10 on 1, so I attempted to cheese him the same way I did with Rana. Unfortunately, he has a longer sword, so it doesn't work as well, and since I have to constantly back up, it causes him to want to walk around the table to fight me. My solution was to put that acrobatics training Quillweave taught me to good use. So I lead him upstairs, would take a couple shots at him, then leap over the banister to the first floor. I repeat this process until I got a lucky knockdown, sealing Jitum Z's fate. I should really send some flowers and thank you card to Quillweave after this, but no time for fond memories, I have a mission to complete. I find Rizakar's room, ready for a fight. Our weapons clash for what felt like ages, mostly because I'm doing the equivalent damage of a mud crab, but in the end my blade runs him through. I then enter the Hiss Sap manufacturing room and fight 2 Argonian mages. Luckily for me, they have very little physical defense because not only do they both summon something to help kill me, but they also cast McDonald's magic to make me over encumbered. Once I'm able to move again, I lead one out of the room and take care of him, wait an hour, then quickly dispatch the other one. Now I just have to destroy the machine, so I grab a nearby pipe and shove it into the gears, causing the machine to break down and flames to engulf the history. The Blackwood Company is no more. Well, except for an old friend who thinks I took his life away. Maglier, the little butt nugget, attempts to fight me, but I deliver a satisfying war axe blow to his neck. Teach you to abandon the Fighters Guild. I return to Orin to tell him the good news, and he rewards me with his family heirloom. I'll make sure to treasure it forever. I report back to Valena Danton about what I have done, and at first she reprimands me for being reckless and a danger to the guild, stripping me of my rank. In the same breath, however, she commends me on my bravery and names me the master of the Fighters Guild. Talk about mixed signals, but it's fine. She tells me I should name a second in command, and there's no one better fit than Orin. At first he's a bit apprehensive, but ultimately gladly accepts, and we are given one of the greatest jokes ever put into a video game.
You can see how good my painting is getting.
I fucking love this game. With that, I have now completed the first of 3 objectives for this run. A sane individual would likely decide to, well, use anything other than these weapons, but want to do the main quest first to try and be as underleveled as possible for it, but I am not a sane individual, so it's time to put my mettle to the test and finish the arena. Like I said earlier, barring one optional quest, the arena is just fight after fight. I did debate doing the Origin of the Grey Prince side quest, but I thought it was more thematic to fight him properly. Most of the encounters pose no real threat due to the fact that both myself and the enemy combatants must wear our arena raiments. Or in other words, they are not wearing in-game armor, so my little rusty knife actually does damage to them. But the key word in that last sentence was most, as 2 of the fights did cause a problem. Unsurprisingly, it's the 2 where it's a 3-on-1. First was the Argonian prisoner fight. It didn't help that they seemed to be hopped up on something and had the zoomies able to close the distance in an instant. Owen said that the yellow team basically cheated to put them against me, so even though it's not very gladiator of me, I thought I would do the same and leaped up into the stands for some time to heal. This fight took a staggering 16 real-life minutes. The next problematic fight is the final encounter with the yellow team champion who had 2 meat bags to back her up. Luckily, I have Porkchop on my side. My hope was that he would distract the champion and I could take down the 2 backup combatants, but that didn't happen. A lucky paralyzing strike let me get some decent early damage in, but after the champion stood up, I thought it would be smart to kill the one fighting Porkchop to keep my own ally alive as long as possible, but I noticed that the health of the mage fighting Porkchop was surprisingly low. I didn't intend to do this, but just to see, I decided to jump on the ledges again and turtle behind my shield. Porkchop pretty much soloed the champion. I mean, to be fair, she was focused on me, but it only took him like 7 hits to take her down. Honestly, I'm glad he's on my side. Either way, I am now crowned the arena champion and only 1 fight remains. I challenged the Grey Prince and named myself Sir Slaughter because Sir Cuts-a-Lot wasn't available, then enter the arena. In this fight, we are allowed to use any armor we want, so obviously I redon my rusty attire and the battle commences. Just as my victory seemed at hand, Agranak pulled a fast one, hitting me so hard he literally knocked me into another dimension. From here, I could hit him, but that didn't seem fair. The only problem was, I couldn't get back into the arena. I tried my hardest, but the walls would just not let me pass, so I had to reload. Second try, my victory once again seemed assured. This time I fought out in the open to avoid any temporal mistakes, but alas, the Grey Prince's defenses were so good that he blocked the Oblivion executable from running and the game crashed. The third time, however, his tricks no longer worked and I stand victorious as the Grand Champion of the arena. That's 2 out of 3 objectives finished. Guess now I should get around to saving the world, huh? I make my way to Kvatch, where I am immediately greeted by a man telling me to run away. Honestly, some pretty sound advice when a portal to literal hell opened in your backyard, but I'm here to save the day. The local soldiers and I fight off a deathclaw before I accept my fate and plunge into the depths of Oblivion. Yeah, I made a mistake by leveling too much. So, instead of fighting, I thought I would run. After all, a nice jog past scenic boiling blood lake will do the body good. Honestly though, these whatever they're called, aren't terribly hard. Lots of health, sure, and fighting multiple of them at the same time is never ideal, but they don't have any quick gap closers, meaning they are susceptible to the step in and out strategy. Eventually, I battle my way to the Hell Tower summit, where I ponder the orb so hard the whole place explodes. I tell Savlian of my victory, though I'm sure he could easily see the giant hell door shut, and together we charge the city of Kvatch, ready to take it back from demonic invaders. Except there is a problem. Very swiftly the whole squad is wiped out, and if I don't think of something fast, I'll join them. So the plan was to get a few free shots in, then leave the city and wait to heal, then repeat that until I've ankle bitten all the demons back to Oblivion. This is not fun. It is not engaging gameplay, it is not rewarding in any way, and it's a boring way to play. Yes, I know that this is a self-inflicted problem, but it was here that I realized the health bloat from enemies is too noticeable to not consider unleashing my secret weapon, dining at Weenie Hut Jr. Oblivion has a difficulty slider. I had left it on whatever 50% is, probably normal difficulty, for this challenge, but reducing the difficulty would make taking down hordes of monsters much easier. I was very tempted to do this, but for the time being, I resisted and instead did my incredibly boring cycle of slash door picnic repeat. Eventually, all the enemies were slain, as well as Savlian's pants apparently, and together we enter the chapel. Here I find Martin, future ruler of Tamriel, probably. I tell him he is the child of Uriel's septum and he, rightfully, thinks I'm full of Magliers. But after a little more talk, he strangely believes me and, understanding that I closed the Oblivion Gate, agrees to travel with me to Wayne Priory. Upon arrival, I am greeted by a frightened and fleeing Aranor who has the awareness of a gnat. No, Aranor, you're completely safe, really. Martin and I fight our way to the chapel to rescue Joffrey, who in turn says he's worried about the Amulet of Kings being stolen. Surprise, it was. While we may have lost a necklace, we gained a priest, which seems weirdly unbalanced, but either way, together we head north to Cloud Ruler Temple, where it is revealed that Martin is the protagonist of the next Elder Scrolls game. After Martin's speech, Joffrey welcomes us into the Blades and gives me a weapon I can't use, then tells me I need to head to the Imperial City and meet with Boris to see if he's learned anything about the assassins. Before that, however, I figured it would be in my best interest to read a book about armor smithing and then be taught the ways of the master. I did this because I was within reach to hit 75 armor skill, which will allow me to repair things to 125% durability. I'm not sure how much this helped, but every little bit counts, I suppose. After that, I meet with Boris, who tells me he's being tailed and that I should follow the man that's following him like some kind of death conga line. Together, we easily dispatch the assassin and I find a book on his body. After catching Boris up on everything that's happened, he instructs me to take the book to Tarmina, a scholar of the Arcane University, as she's a specialist in Daedric cults. I don't know if it was intentional to make the individual who is interested in cults a lizard person or not, but regardless, Tarmina tells me that there are, in fact, 4 volumes of the Mysterium Xarxes. The first 2 are usually easy to find, but the latter 2 are exceedingly rare. She suspects that if we can locate all 4 books, together they will provide clues on how to find the Mythic Dawn's secret hideout. I already have the first book, and she gives me a copy of the second, then suggests I try the first edition in the Market District to see if I can locate the third and fourth. Phintius informs me that the third and fourth volume are, and I quote, impossible to find, then immediately tells me that he has a copy of the third volume. He says he's holding onto it for another client, and despite my attempts at bribing him to like me, he won't give it up. As if on cue, the client in question, Gwynnis, appears at the store to claim his book. I attempted to buy it from him, but he won't have it. Now he very obviously wants to join the Mythic Dawn, but didn't realize that they were behind the assassination of the Emperor. Upon learning this, he immediately wants nothing to do with them and hands the book over to me. I'm not sure how much it costs him, but if that isn't throwing septums away, I don't know what is. He also informs me that the only way to get the 4th volume is directly from somebody in the cult itself, someone calling themselves the sponsor. Extra fortunately, Gwynnis was set to meet up with the sponsor, but thanks to his change of heart, has passed the details of the meeting on to me. Together, Boris and I head to the meeting location, which is in the sewers under the city. Jane, do we have a sewer count? Oh, that's Civi patented? I understand. The beginning of the journey was pretty easy, just a few mudcrabs here and there. But then suddenly goblin shamans and warlords are trying to kill me. Now, this wouldn't be a huge issue, except Boris decided he just didn't give a shit anymore and kept walking. At first, I tried to bait the shaman into electrifying her partner, but she constantly spawned headless zombies that were giving me issues. Ultimately, I led the zombie outside, which attracted a guard who then joined me in the sewer to fight the actual shaman. After that, Boris decided to finally stop loafing around and fought the goblin warlord. He was knocked unconscious in just a few seconds. Eventually, the warlord falls as well, and Boris and I can continue on to the meeting. Is what I would like to say, but one room away is another warlord and 2 shamans, and this is where I reached my breaking point. Individually, these enemies aren't that difficult. The Warlord can attack quickly, but doesn't do a whole lot of damage. In contrast, the Shaman will absolutely obliterate my health bar, but then run away the moment I get near her. Even after I separated them, the Shaman was just too much, so I drew my secret weapon. I dropped the difficulty. Boris, disgusted with my weakness, did some kind of special pose before engaging in the fight. What's amazing is that even with these trash tier weapons, the game is now too easy. I took very little damage. Even the Shaman's lightning hardly made a dent in my health. It was actually so easy that after the encounter, I bumped the difficulty back up to about a quarter of the way. Further in, we get to the meeting place and Boris decides that he should be the one to talk with the sponsor and then I should be the backup. But I forgot that my Starlight spell was on, which caused our cover to be blown instantly. This doesn't actually matter, but I did want to experience the story, so I reloaded a save and fought through the now slightly stronger, but still much weaker than before, goblins. This felt better, still a little too easy, but I was no longer Rusty the God of Destruction. Now I was more like Rusty the low-level deity of janitorial duties. Regardless, Boris and I attend the meeting, which is then cut short by a patrol, who we then cut short with our blades. The sponsor turns out to be Mankar Cameron's son, which isn't really plot relevant and not actually mentioned, but it's a neat little detail. Now I'm supposed to return to Taormina to analyze all 4 books, but for some reason the game requests that I go the long way through the sewers, which means fighting my way through multiple goblin hordes. I'm sure it was trying to lead me to the exit closest to Taormina herself, but why though? I ended up just going up through some random drain into a house in the Imperial City. Fortunately, no one saw me exit, so no walk of shame is needed. I give the book to Taormina, who asked me to come back tomorrow to see what she's found out. After her investigation, she believes that the first word in each paragraph has significance. Now, I already know where to go, but I thought it would be fun to decipher what the message was. No, really. Thus, I open the book and apparently am too stupid to join the Mythic Dawn, as I thought the first word of every paragraph was the clue. Which would start out something like, "Greetings, reader, enter every night, enter my palace, endlessly roaring blah blah blah." At first, I thought it was just gibberish, but every book contains some words that actually did work together, like the second book starting, "Whomever answers your whispers." Like, that could actually work. Well, as it turns out, it's not every first word, it's every first letter. The real hidden message is Green Emperor Way, where tower touches midday sun. Green Emperor Way is another name for the palace garden, and midday sun means noon. So I head over there, but just as I arrive, the map revealing its location disappears. Also, can we talk about how a map in the Imperial Palace Garden, which is not a prohibited area, shows the location of the cult that murdered the Emperor every day at noon? How has no one noticed this before? Either way, I now have the location of the Mythic Dawn hideout, Lake Eris Caverns. Now, despite being both the Master of the Fighters Guild and the Grand Champion of the arena, it seems no one knows who I am. I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense, as any Mythic Dawn agents I've encountered are now swimming with the slaughterfish. I am presented with a choice. I can either play along to keep my cover, or murder hobo my way through the cave. I decide to play along, mostly for the story. However, this requires I give up all my possessions to the warden and follow him to the main hall where Mankar Cameron is within cutting range. But I no longer have my trusty rusty dagger, so there's nothing I can do. Also, it's probably not smart to attack the leader of a cult while in his hideout, surrounded by his followers. Mankar then leaves and the amulet with him, but he left his magical book on the pedestal. Before I can take it though, I am told to complete the red drink ritual and become a member of the Mythic Dawn. I am given a dagger and told to slay the prisoner, and at first I thought I was going to go through with it, but there is one little problem. This dagger is silver. Now, it's been a while since Orc chemistry class, but I believe silver and iron are in fact 2 different elements. As such, I am not able to use it to do anything aside from cutting the celebratory cake after I take down Mankar Cameron. So I grab the Mysterium Xarxes and just hightail it out of the cave. Now, I thought there was a chest somewhere that held the items I gave over to the warden, but I was unable to locate it. Perhaps it never existed. I believe if you kill the warden, you can get them back, but again, silver dagger. So I reloaded a save. This time, peace is not an option. I go absolutely ballistic, swinging my rusty sword and axe at anything red and vaguely human-shaped. This time, I even attempted to cut Mankar himself down, but it seems he has temporary plot armor and can't be harmed. I grab the book and murder Mankar's daughter. No, there's no fanfare here either, but she will be back later, then slice my way through Alkalite and Guard alike. I really wish I had a fireball spell right now. As I was approaching the exit from another dimension, Mankar decided to activate his stand ability and crashed my game. After slaughtering the cult twice over, I am able to escape with the book and give it to Martin. He is absolutely terrified of the evil that is contained within the book, but thankful I have it as it holds the key to opening a door to Cameron's paradise. For the time being, I am told to speak to Joffrey, as there have been reports of spies in Bruma. Strangely, the stone that the spies are hanging around is a short distance away from Cloud Ruler Temple. I understand they want every blade to be around to protect Martin, but guys, it's right there. Regardless, I wait until dawn and engage in honorable combat with the spy. She dies to my paper cuts, and I take the basement key from her body and magically know that the captain of the Bruma Guard might have more information. Bird says things have been quiet, but specifically mentions a soldier named Jarl returning from a trip down south. The mythic Dong base... Oops. The mythic Dawn base, while it is south of Bruma, is more east than it is south, but nonetheless I will question Jarl. Strangely though, while my quest said I should speak to her, my objective marker pointed me towards the Bruma Caverns, which is the entrance to her basement. I figured this meant that she was down there, but no, the place is empty. Inside I was able to find evidence that Jarl is indeed a Mythic Dawn sleeper agent, and then I returned this information to Joffrey, who says the document mentions 2 agents and that I should eliminate both. I mean, one is already dead, so the only remaining one is Jarl. With no indicator of what to do, I thought I would hit up a local beggar for information. He claims to have seen someone looking out the window at Jarl's house. That seems to be sufficient information for an investigation, but Captain Bird just doesn't want to. The game keeps pointing me to him, but it seems I must take matters into my own hands. Thus, I locate Jarl's house, break in, and notice 2 things. 1, she's not home, and 2, there's no window for anyone to be seen looking out of. Ah well, I wait half a day and find her peacefully sleeping. As surprising as it is, a sneak attack is enough to one-shot her, and my killing was observed by forces unknown? What? The Dark Brotherhood considered a Mythic Dawn sleeper agent an innocent citizen? Alright then. I returned to Joffrey, who is happy I was able to put an end to the spies, and says I should speak with Martin as he's made progress into opening the portal. Martin informs me that to get to Paradise, I need 4 items, the first of which is the blood of a Daedra Lord. The easiest way to get that is to obtain a Daedric artifact, as they are themselves made out of the essences of said Daedra Lords. I decided to just follow what the game tells me to do and retrieve Azura's star. Honestly, any of the artifacts would work, but this one is a fairly short distance away and easy to get. I pray at the shrine of Azura, and she tells me that 5 of her followers once slew an evil vampire, but they themselves became unholy monsters. She wishes for me to end their suffering, so off to the gutted mine I go, where I immediately get hit and contract the vampire disease. That's cool. Honestly, these vampires were pretty weak, save for the 2 orcs in Daedric armor, but even they were no match for the might of I'm running out of things to call this dagger, my shiv of mild irritation, I guess. After taking them all out, I return to Azura, who rewards me with Azura's Star, an infinite use soul gem, otherwise known as completely useless garbage to me. I return it to Martin, who takes it off my hands and tells me that Joffrey has troubling news. It would seem an Oblivion gate has opened up outside Bruma. Yeah, I would classify that as troubling. Joffrey figured since I had closed the gate before, it would be smart to teach Bird and his men how to handle one. So together we storm the gate, and now I understand why the Mythic Dawn like the plane of Oblivion so much. Inside are more enemies, but they all go down without a problem. Honestly, it felt a bit too easy. I mean, these massive hulking enemies are going down left and right, and the only thing that posed a threat was the automatic fireball turret. So, near the top of the spire, I made the decision to increase the difficulty some more. Then a Dremora decided to cast Burger King at me and rooted me in place. I don't know why he didn't follow up on that, but I'm not upset. I show Bird how he must ponder the orb, and in our trance, the gate collapses. Bird thanks me for the assistance and now knows what he must do in the event another gate should open. I return to Cloud Ruler Temple, where I level up to 28 and find Boris training his ankles? Honestly, that form is magnificent. Joffrey tells me that since the Mythic Dawn are planning to open a Great Gate, we should gather aid for Bruma, which would mean I would need to travel to each city and aid them in closing an Oblivion Gate, so my answer is no. Martin tells me that he has figured out the second piece to the puzzle. We need the blood of a divine. According to him, no gods have materialized on this plane, so there should be no way to get it, except Joffrey mentions that Tiber Septim ascended to godhood, so perhaps his blood will work, and there's likely to be some of it on his armor. He then proceeds to tell me that the armor is housed in Sancre-Tor, a holy place, or at least it once was, as it is now overrun with evil, because of course it is. The outside is guarded by 4 liches, but thankfully my blades are able to hurt them. It's slow going, especially because they constantly summon aid, and one of them apparently has the spell Knock Me on My Ass, but they succumb to the might of my rusty dagger. The inside of Sancre-Tor, however, is a different story. This place is crawling with gloom wraiths, which are basically ghosts, but on steroids. The biggest issue being that I can't hurt them at all. As such, my only option is to simply sprint through this massive dungeon and take out the 4 undead blades that are soul trapped here. Fortunately, I recently hit master level in heavy armor, so I'm as swift as the wind. The first and second blade didn't pose much of a threat. The third one, however, had a katana with a disintegrate armor on strike enchantment. Since I was constantly being hunted by the race, I was never able to stop and repair my weapons either, meaning in this encounter, I was basically naked with nearly broken, nearly useless weapons against a skeleton and his 2 invincible ghost bodyguards. But this is where the strange, quirk of the rusty weapons comes into play. For some reason, they stack in my inventory, and in doing so, will occasionally repair themselves to 100 durability. It doesn't always happen and is definitely a bug, but honestly, I'm not complaining. The fourth and final blade is on the other side of a locked door. Now, the skeleton directly in front of the door holds the key, but taking the time to fight him would cause the ghost to be able to catch up to me. As such, I decided to just pick the lock and run in. Unfortunately, I was not able to take out the blade before he had backup, so I just ran away. Again, the blades themselves lose aggro rather fast, but for some reason the ghost will chase me forever. As annoying as it is, I just leave them far away and sprint back to the blade to finish the job. Then I join the first 3 in the main hall and we wait for the 4th one to arrive. And wait. And wait. And wait some more. For some reason the race move extremely slow in here. I don't know why, but it's fine with me. Eventually the final blade showed up and removed the seal, allowing me to grab the armor of Tiber's septum and return to Martin. While I was off playing Scooby-Doo, Martin was able to decipher the next needed item, a Great Welkin Stone. A powerful artifact that, due to their immense value, have thought to have been picked clean from any runes. Fortunately though, Martin has a lead on where one might be, Miss Kargand. He warns me that the rune is rumored to be haunted by the vengeful spirit of its last king. If that's true, I simply hope it's the kind of spirit I can hit, otherwise this is going to be far more difficult. Upon my arrival, I am met with a bunch of goblins, which is wonderful news because these are still considered low-level goblins which have a chance at dropping rusty weapons. Specifically, I am still on the lookout for a rusty iron mace, the one weapon I don't have, and as if Talos heard me, it's laying in a pool of blood right at the start. The reason I wanted this is because it has the highest damage potential for any of the rusted weapons, doing a whopping 7 damage. Currently it does 6, same as my bladed weapons, likely due to the fact that my blade skill is max but blunt is not. Regardless, I am happy to have finally completed the set. The rest of the dungeon is mostly uneventful, though I do note that it takes an absolute age to kill a dread zombie, and they can inflict a disease that causes my magicka to stop regenerating, so that blows. A couple rooms later, it looks like a few skeletons have a bone to pick with me, but my mace made, well, not quick work of them. In fact, this took 10 minutes, but I did beat them to a fine calcium powder. In the final room, I grabbed the Great Welkin Stone, and that's when he appears, the undead king of Miss Kargand. Now, the good news is he's a lich, meaning I can hit him. The bad news is he has the staff of go fuck yourself. I don't know what that is, but a single hit drains 7 of my attributes, knocks me down, and roots me in place. To be fair, I think the last 2 things were because it lowered my agility and strength, but still, not the most fun thing to fight. I thought about just running, but him spawning caused every door to lock with a very hard lock, so guess I'm fighting. I actually thought the game was nice and gave me a secret way out with this pressure plate, but surprise, it's more zombies. It even managed to hit me, inflicting me with astral vapors, which means my healing is now severely limited, so the odds are stacked against me. Except the Undead King has one fatal flaw. Walls. He was really bad at floating around walls to hit me. I used this to my advantage playing the world's slowest game of Deadly Peekaboo, which was going well until he cast an additional attack that disintegrated my weapon on touch. If my weapons weren't made out of cardboard before, they sure are now. But after a long battle, he falls. I use this time to heal to full health, not magicka obviously, and repair everything. On the way out, I notice that I am suddenly able to kill dread zombies way faster. I think my mace finally does 7 damage, and that's just swell. I'm sure that 1 point of damage is gonna be handy. On my way to Cloud Ruler Temple, I make a quick stop at the Bruma Chapel to cure myself of that rotten disease, then return to Martin, who has some worrisome news. He has deciphered the final part of the puzzle, and just like how the first 2 parts were opposites, so too are the 3rd and 4th, and the opposite of a Great Welkin Stone is a Great Sigil Stone, which can only be obtained from a Great Oblivion Gate. The plan then is to let the Mythic Dawn open the gate that could potentially destroy Bruma, but you know, don't let that happen and instead take the Great Sigil Stone. I head off to Bruma to tell the Countess that we are about to risk her whole city for some red rock. While she is understandably uncomfortable with the idea, she also realizes that if we don't, then the whole of Tamriel is in danger. The Countess and I meet Martin in the chapel, who essentially apologizes for putting her whole city at risk, but she understands and consults with me rather she should stop her men from closing the gates. Since I never went and got aid from the other cities, the assault is going to be that much more difficult, but I am confident in my ability to hit hard with my papier-mâché mace, so I tell her to order her men to stop. On the battlefield, Martin delivers a speech that could warm any Nord's heart, and I just noticed Bird is still in his pajamas. That's reassuring. Regardless, the fighting starts. Enemies begin pouring out of the gates. For some reason, half the militia refuse to fight, but that's okay, we can handle it. Eventually, the Great Gate opens and the time has come. Fearlessly, I enter, only 15 minutes before the siege engine emerges and destroys Bruma. Normally, this timer is pretty generous, but given my rusty situation, time is of the utmost importance. As such, I had to get a bit creative while fighting. For example, gravity is my best friend when climbing the towers. With just under 4 minutes to spare, I made it to the summit. Now the truth is, I plan on fighting my way through everything to get here, as it seemed like the heroic thing to do, and part of the challenge. I'll admit I skipped the first 2 enemies when I first entered the gate, but aside from that I had fought everything else, but these last 2 Dremora, I don't know if I could take them on in the 3 minutes I had left, so I decided to just grab the siege tower by the ball and call it a day. Back in the waking world, the gates have closed and Bruma is safe. Martin tells me that he is now able to open the portal, and once I enter, it will close behind me, with the only way out being to take down Mankar Cameron. With everything prepared, I stepped into paradise. Yep, this is paradise. So as it turns out, all those that followed Cameron's words did gain immortal status, but instead of paradise, they are tortured endlessly here. Speaking with one of them, I am told the only way to Cameron's palace is through the Forbidden Grotto, but no one has ever returned from there. The guardian of said grotto is Cathatut, who speaks to me as an equal warrior, or that is what he thought before I turned him into a fine red paste. From his body, I am able to collect the bands of the Chosen. Now, the game has told me many times at this point that only those wearing these bands may enter the grotto, but I had hoped that it would just not make me put them on. Unfortunately, that's not the case, so technically you can't beat it with only rusty armor on, but I've come this far, so I'm not stopping now. In the next room, I meet Eldamil, who says he'll help me leave the Forbidden Grotto and remove the bands if I promise to kill Cameron. Listen, I've made many jokes about the NPCs believing anything they're told, but I suppose I can't do that anymore, as I willingly get into a cave over a river of lava while trusting this stranger that is literally part of the Mythic Dawn cult. Fortunately, he's actually telling the truth, as just before he lowers me into the spicy code red, he raises the cage. Sorry, counterweight guy, your break was pretty short. He then says he will meet me further into the cave to remove the bands. Some help he was. Fortunately, all of the Ascended Immortals here are, well, immortal, so he does show up in the next room to take the bands off and asks if he can come with me. Normally I wouldn't care either way, but considering the Cameron fight is at least 3-on-1, I could use the extra help. Entering Mankar's palace, he begins monologuing at me about how the true world is going to be born and he will be in ultimate power, that he's won, blah 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 blah. Honestly, big talk for someone in bludgeoning range. Mankar and his children Boykar and Girlkar do very little damage separately, but combined, plus the summons, it does get a bit spicy. The real problem, however, is that Mankar can heal at very low health, and I don't really do the damage to outpace that, so looks like the Oblivion crisis wasn't averted after all. After another temporal loop, I am back, and the plan is to paralyze or knock down Mankar just before he heals to win the fight. For some reason this time, he actually didn't use his staff, which is fine. I did manage to land the paralyze, but it wasn't at the opportune moment. Either way, he falls, and with that, I take the Amulet of Kings back. Martin is there to greet me after I exit Paradise, which, by the way, sure is a good thing the exit portal is in the same place that I went in. Would have been embarrassing if I ended up like 500 meters into the sky. I hand the amulet over to Martin, who, despite having a gut feeling that he is the Emperor's son, puts it on just to prove it to the rest of us anyway. The only thing left to do now is to get him to the Temple of the One to light the dragon fires and stop the invasion. But first, my final level up of the game to 31. After all, things couldn't get much harder, right? Martin and I journey to the Imperial City, where we meet with High Chancellor Okado, who will crown Martin the new Emperor of Tamriel. But before he can finish, a guard bursts in and alerts us that Daedra have overrun the city, a last-ditch effort to stop Martin from stopping the Oblivion invasion. Together we fight through the streets to get to the Temple of the One, but it's too late. Mehrunes Dagon has appeared, heralding the end. Martin, in the midst of the chaos, tells us that if we are somehow able to cast Dagon back into Oblivion, then we should be able to stop the invasion, but no mortal weapon will be able to do that. Then he has an idea and asks us to take him to the Temple of the One, which is like 7 meters behind him. Inside, he bids us farewell as the ceiling collapses to reveal the hulking knockoff Gigantamax Machamp, but Martin has a plan, and that is to smash the Amulet of Kings. You know, the one thing that's supposed to seal Tamriel off from Oblivion. Fortunately, his gamble paid off and he turns into a dragon. This whole game is an LSD trip and I love it. The battle is climactic for 2006, but I won't knock it. It still feels cool to watch a giant fire-breathing dragon take out a demon, and with that, the Oblivion crisis is averted. Thank you everyone for watching. I know this wasn't my normal kind of video, but I really wanted to play this game. It was part of my childhood, and it was great to get to go through it again. Extra big special thanks to my Patreons. Stay beautiful, y'all. If you're watching this on YouTube and want to see more right now, why not consider subscribing to my Patreon? For as little as $3 a month, you can help support me and the channel directly and see the next video live right now. But until next time, my friends, don't you dare let the guards tell you they have fought mud crabs stronger than you.